Renegade Immortal, Chapter 643, Wang Lin's Wisdom. Inside the purple mist, Greed's eyes faintly opened and released a cold light. Although these strange demonic beasts are indeed very powerful, as long as my 7 magical needles are controlling it, it won't be able to escape from me. Controlling this king beast means controlling the entire herd. This group of demonic beasts is too strange. If I were to use them properly, then even when old man Ling Tian Hao arrives, I will have a way to deal with him. There was a hint of pride in Greed's eyes. After he entered the Tide Abyss, he started arranging his own plans. One of them required the integration of an array. However, he suddenly encountered the mosquito beasts. At first he was startled, but then he was ecstatic. Greed never had a fixed residence. He was always adrift among the stars, heading to wherever there was treasure. This is where the saying, "There are always treasures where greed goes," came from. He had been to too many places in his life, so he had seen these mosquito beasts before. When he first saw them, it was on a very desolate planet. Greed was escaping from someone's pursuit and had just come out of an ancient transfer array. As soon as he appeared, he saw something he could never forget. It was a large space filled with gray gas with only one planet. The planet was purple. There were countless mosquitoes densely packed together around the planet. The pressure they gave off was so powerful that Greed didn't hesitate at all to use the transfer array to go back. He rather faced the enemy who was hunting him than face those terrifying beasts. After seeing the mosquito beasts inside the cracks of the Tide Abyss, an idea immediately entered his mind. Then he carefully sent out his life treasure, the 7 magical needles, and used his divine sense to carefully send them into the crack. All of the mosquito beasts were in hibernation. Greed still held fear for the mosquito beasts since the last time he encountered him. He was very careful because he was afraid of awakening them. He finally found the king mosquito. When the needles stabbed into the king, he immediately escaped from the crack. That was when Chen Long's group was suddenly trapped by the mosquitoes. As for the purple mist, it was an important part of Greed's place. Greed looked around the Lou Sword Sect disciples and sneered in his heart. Among old man Ling Tian Hao's disciples, aside from Chen Long, the rest are all trash. This old man has come to the Tide Abyss 3 times since I arrived at the Demon Spirit Land. I finally determined that within this purple mist is the token that made even Ling Tian Hao's and the All-Seer's eyes turn red. However, this token is a bit strange. According to my observations, it will only appear at a certain time, and it seems to require some sacrifices. Greed's eyes seemed to randomly swipe past the Lou Sword Sect disciples, including Chen Long. If it weren't for the fact that I'm worried about the sword energy inside their bodies, I would have already captured these 5 little ones. Then I would have made them willingly sacrifice themselves instead of being trapped here for 100 years to make them anxious. Wang Lin stood on the celestial sword and slowly approached the purple mist from the other side. Shortly after, he detected the purple mist in the distance. This purple mist was extremely dense to the point of almost being solid. It completely blocked the path. Unless they go through this mist, they would not be able to reach the exit in the fire demon country. Wang Lin, my sword divine sense can still not penetrate this purple mist. This purple mist is very strange, but you can also rest assured that the people trapped inside can't detect you with their divine senses. Zhou Yi's divine sense message came from inside the celestial sword. Wang Lin nodded and began to ponder. The pressure pushing him up from the Tide Abyss was always there. He had to activate the celestial spiritual energy inside his body to stabilize himself. He stared at the purple mist and frowned. Just at this moment, waves of ripples came from his bag of holding. He split a part of his divine sense to check the bag and immediately saw the mosquito beast. The mosquito beast was restless, and there was even a hint of red in its eyes. After it noticed Wang Lin's divine sense, it let out a cry and flew into the purple mist. Wang Lin's eyes narrowed. He immediately stepped off the celestial sword and caught up with the mosquito. Zhou Yi was surprised and quickly followed. The purple mist didn't affect the mosquito at all. It entered the mist and disappeared. Wang Lin was shocked. He didn't know what was going on with the mosquito. Fortunately, his connection with the mosquito was still there. Wang Lin pondered a bit. Right now wasn't the time to worry about the mosquito. He let out a sigh as he focused himself and slowly flew upward. Inside the celestial sword, Zhou Yi circled around Wang Lin. He had his divine sense spread out, observing the surrounding abyss. Greed didn't notice that cultivators had entered the purple mist. The reason he was able to detect the impact of Wang Lin's and Ling Tianhao's divine senses was because the shock wave traveled directly through the walls. That was the only reason he was able to detect it. Wang Lin flew slowly inside the mist and was extremely vigilant. His divine sense had almost no effect inside the purple mist. All he could see before him was thick mist. The 1,000,000 life seals flashed on his head, covering his body. If a crisis occurred, it would earn him the chance to act. Zhou Yi circled around Wang Lin. As he flew, he suddenly sent out a divine message. Wang Lin, there is an empty area 5 kilometers ahead, and there are 6 people inside. One of them has powerful cultivating, and the other 5 wear clothes that seem somewhat familiar. 6 people? Wang Lin's eyes light up. I will let you see. Zhou Yi's divine sense entered Wang Lin's body and dragged Wang Lin's divine sense into the mist. They pierced through a large amount of purple mist and entered the empty area 5 kilometers away. The mist before Wang Lin scattered, and then 6 cultivators appeared before his eyes. It's them! Wang Lin immediately recognized the identities of these 6 people. Just at this moment, the old man sitting in the middle suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes gave off a golden light as he shouted, "Which fellow cultivator is this? This old man's name is Greed." Greed's shout immediately caused the surrounding Lou Sword Sect disciples' expressions to change greatly, and they suddenly stood up. However, Chen Long did not, but there was a mysterious light in his eyes. If you looked closer, you would find a hint of joy in his eyes. Zhou Yi brought Wang Lin's divine sense back into the purple mist and disappeared. Greed's expression was ugly, and he let out a cold snort. He slapped his bag of holding, but after hesitating for a moment, he didn't take out a magical treasure. The other's divine sense was extremely strange, which made him uncertain. This divine sense only looked like an early-stage ascendant cultivator, but there was another divine sense inside. This second divine sense was extremely strong and even contained a very sharp sword intent. Before he understood the other's ability, Greed wasn't willing to provoke the enemy, especially because he was still injured. His original cultivation was at the illusory yin stage, but now it was only at the peak of the late stage of ascendant. During these countless years, he still wasn't able to recover to the peak. This didn't mean that C2 Nan was extremely powerful, just that if any cultivator at the illusory yin stage were to drop in cultivation, it would take several times more effort to recover it than reaching it. After all, the illusory yin and corporeal yang were key steps between the first and second steps. They were like the moment when the butterfly breaks out from its cocoon. Even for C2 Nan, if it wasn't for the fact that he was being nourished by a mysterious force inside the heaven-defying bead, and his talent was simply too amazing, he wouldn't have recovered his cultivation. However, although Greed's cultivation was limited to the peak of the late stage of Ascendant, his cultivation wasn't something an Ascendant cultivator would have. Adding on the treasures he obtained over the countless years, even an illusory Yin cultivator would require a lot of effort to kill him. If they were careless for a moment, they would allow Greed to escape. Zhou Yi brought Wang Lin's divine sense back, and they returned to their own bodies. Among the 6 of them, 5 of them are disciples of the Lou Sword Sect, and the last one is called Greed. Wang Lin didn't explain too much about Greed. Lou Sword Sect. Yes, no wonder I felt something familiar. Lou Sword Sect. Wang Lin, what do you plan to do? Zhou Yi's cold voice came from the celestial sword. Wang Lin pondered a bit and said, Senior, don't you find this strange? This greed's cultivation level is very high, and all of Ling Tianho's disciples even have a piece of Ling Tianho's sword energy. Junior also knows that they disappeared about 100 years ago. Taking all that into account, Junior is 80% sure that unless they have been trapped here for 100 years, they must have a reason to stay here. Also, Senior, did you notice that one of the Lou Sword Sect disciples revealed a glimmer of joy in his eyes? I checked his cultivation level and found him to be at the early stage of Ascendant. Out of everyone who has reached the Ascendant, which one isn't extremely cunning? How could he reveal such an obvious look of joy? That look of joy was obviously a signal. Wang Lin faintly smiled, and there was a flash of wisdom in his eyes. He analyzed, this Lou Sword Sect disciple is interesting. He's using that look of joy to tell us that they aren't together with greed. That should be a plea for help. Zhou Yi's figure appeared above the celestial sword, and he meaningfully looked at Wang Lin, with shock in his eyes. For the first time, he felt Wang Lin's terror. Wang Lin's cultivation level was only at the early stage of Ascendant. If he hadn't given Wang Lin the Ascendant Crystal, Wang Lin probably wouldn't have managed to make it past the life and death trial. In Zhou Yi's mind, Wang Lin was a righteous and sentimental junior. Although he was grateful, Wang Lin didn't have the same status as him. However, Zhou Yi's impression of Wang Lin changed greatly after hearing Wang Lin's words. This child's schemes run deep, and he makes very keen observations. This wisdom is extremely terrifying, especially with how decisively this child acts. To have reached this cultivation level in merely 1,000 years was definitely not due to luck. I really underestimated him before.